Welcome back, listeners, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. In today's Let's Cast, we're looking at Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr.'s The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1. And yeah, this is the start of a new run by Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. I don't know how long this run is going to go for, but this is the newest run that has just started, I think, like a week or two ago. And yeah, I hadn't gotten around to making my review, but today we're going to be going over the first issue and expect reviews of every new issue as they drop. So when they drop, we will be talking about it on the channel. So if you're new to the channel, you should subscribe for these reviews as the Amazing Spider-Man issues drop for this run. But without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So this story starts off showing us some type of event that happened with Spider-Man. It's very similar to what we see in the recent Hulk run, where there's like this mystery of what exactly happened to our hero character. And I really do enjoy the artwork in this set of panels. Very cool and detailed. Now we get to see that Peter talks to Aunt May, and it seems like she is talking to him about kind of like him closing himself off for a few months after this so-called event, which we don't get to know a whole lot about. So hopefully in issue 2 we get more info on what exactly happened to Peter. But Peter is having like a miscommunication with Aunt May and with everybody else in his life, it seems, as we also get to see him interact with his former roommate, Robbie Robinson. And Robbie basically is about to ask Tombstone if he can marry his daughter. So it seems like, I think her name was Janice. So it seems like Robbie and Janice are taking it to the next level, or at least he's going to try taking it to the next level from what we saw in the Ned Spencer run. So I do enjoy that John Romita Jr. is, and Zeb Wells are taking what was done at the Ned Spencer and Ryan Otley run of Spider-Man and are gonna probably expand on some of those relationships and plot lines. So I think that's really cool. And they're also gonna be doing their own thing as we see later on in the issue. But yeah, Robbie basically confronts Peter about him being late on rent and him having to pay for it, so that they don't get foreclosured and stuff like that and evicted. And he basically comments the same as Aunt May, that he's kind of been shutting himself out from all of his friends and family. And Peter just is acting very out of character in this issue, which a lot of people did not enjoy, as I saw other people's reviews. Now we also get to see that Tombstone has a meeting with all the crime lords in New York City. Some of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery is here. The Rose makes an offer to Tombstone about something about his territories, and the Rose basically doesn't have any territories right now, I guess, with what happened during the King's Ransom story arc, if I'm correct, in the Ned Spencer run. But the Rose basically brings in Digger, which is a character that I'm not very familiar with, and I haven't read any of his stories in old Spider-Man comics, so I don't really know a lot about this character. But I do know he's supposed to be very powerful, and we do get a really cool feat of power in this issue, but we get to see that the Rose basically uses him to persuade Tombstone of the power that he still wields, and Tombstone makes an agreement with him, making kind of like an agreement offer between the two that they can exchange goods and stuff. Stuff like drugs and weapons, I'm guessing, and high-tech weaponry and stuff. So that was really cool. And just seeing a B tier, I would say, villain for Spider-Man coming back really shows, that it's very possible that John Romita Jr. worked on Digger as a character, and that's why they're bringing him back now. But I thought it was really cool that they're going to be using B tier characters, hopefully, in this run, which will give it its own unique flair, other than using the main set of Rogues Gallery that we usually see in Spider-Man comics. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this issue. So after they make an agreement with each other, they basically go their separate ways, as Tombstone states that he has somewhere he needs to be, a dinner they needs to go to, which is a dinner between him and Robbie Robinson. So he goes off with his assistant, which is the bunny girl or whatever that we saw in the Sinister War. Now Peter basically going off to kind of like check up on Robbie, make sure that Tombstone doesn't try killing him for his offer proposal to marry his daughter, and kind of like maybe he might fly off the handle. The Human Torch basically goes to Peter Parker's house or apartment, tells him that he's kind of worried about him, but Peter basically just brushes him off, just like everyone else in this issue. He goes off on his own way. Now we get to see that Tombstone and Robbie basically do have a dinner with each other, and we get a really cool interaction between the two characters. And Tombstone basically tells him that he knows that Janice can do whatever she wants, so he, in a way, gives him his blessing, but he basically goes off on his own, I guess, and they finish their dinner and then go their own ways. It seems, at least that's what's implied in the story, at least the way I took it. So after that, we get to see a Spider-Man after checking up on Robbie, seeing that everything seems to be going well. Gets to his Spider-Man outfit, which he kept, I guess, underneath his civilian clothes, which he hadn't done in a long time in these last few months, I'm guessing. He goes off and he chases against, after some super villains, basically. And we see that the bunny girl basically talks to some of the Rose's henchmen, basically, and she brings them goblin gliders. So I'm guessing, if anything, we're going to see the hobgoblin in this story line run of stories, basically, for John Romita Jr. and Zeb Wells. So I think that's going to be really interesting. There's many things they can bring into this run, such as the Green Goblin, the Hobgoblin, or the Demo Goblin, or Demon Goblin. I'm not sure how you say it. It's Demo Goblin. He might be coming back, but it definitely needs to be something Goblin related. So I really enjoy when they do stuff like this to set up future story arcs in the story, if not the next story arc that might be coming up. And when they get caught by Spider-Man, Spider-Man meets his present known after tailing their car on the roof of the car. Digger basically is called out by one of the henchmen to help them and take care of Spider-Man, and Digger basically breaks through the roof of the car. I guess he was inside waiting for someone like Spider-Man to show up. He starts choking Spider-Man out, and Digger apparently has very high superhuman strength, and that Spider-Man doesn't hold back and just breaks Digger's fingers, which I guess Digger is supposed to be kind of like Solomon Grundy from the DC universe, where he's kind of like a living zombie, so he's able to just break his fingers. And I thought this part was kind of funny, with Digger basically surprised, saying that, our fingers, basically surprised that Spider-Man would go that far, as in using his super spider strength to basically just break the fingers off of Digger. But it was really funny, and Spider-Man basically says that, he was just working in self-defense, that, Digger was the one that, he says, you were choking me. So that was really funny. And so Digger and Spider-Man are going to get into a brawl, and the rest of the henchmen basically start shooting. They start laying out fire and on Spider-Man. Of course, Spider-Man can dodge all these bullets pretty easily, but Digger grabs one of the supply cars, a giant truss, and he basically tries to crush Spider-Man or something like that, and it causes a giant explosion when it makes contact with another car and crushes it. So Spider-Man saves as many people as he can by getting them to get down before the explosion goes off, or while it's going off. And we get to see that the bunny basically gets away, or she tries to get away, as Spider-Man hears that there's someone trapped underneath the car that was still inside the car that Digger apparently tried to crush completely. So we get to see that Digger basically tells his henchmen, or the henchmen of the Rose, his fellow henchmen, that apparently Spider-Man had some truth in what he was saying, and that Spider-Man had told him that originally he had just like faded away or crumbled away or something like that, and he basically, was left out in the sun or something. So he says he doesn't want this to happen again, so he's gonna, just get out of there for the moment. I think he wore himself out, he said, in their previous fight, and that's how he died. Basically, just stopped being where he could taint all of Spider-Man's attacks. I've never read the original stories with them, so I don't know if that's true, but I'm guessing it is. And like I said, more than anything, John Romita Jr. probably worked on that run of Spider-Man where Digger was a big deal and was introduced, so I'm pretty sure he would know what he's talking about, as well as Zeb Wells. But after that, we get to see that Spider-Man does save the henchman, and the bunny gets cocky, thinking she's going to get away, but Spider-Man uses his webbing to basically put her in place for the police to show up. And Spider-Man basically ties the goon as well with the bunny around the same car, on the same car, and he basically webs away himself before the police get there. So Spider-Man goes and he basically rests at his apartment or house, whatever he's at. I think he's at Aunt May's house. And he basically checks his phone. He basically calls Mary Jane, and Mary Jane is basically hiding in a closet, it seems, and she basically tells Peter not to be calling her and stuff. So there seems to be something that's going on. It's pretty suspect. We jump to see Tombstone basically having a drink, petting his cat, and just having a good time as he's talking about making deals with the other crime lords, stuff like that. And they mention to him about what happened with Spider-Man interfering with their plans. So he basically goes inside, pours himself another drink when he realizes that something's off, and he kind of like smells something like gasoline, and a giant explosion happens that you would think would kill him. We see that the Rose's henchmen are with Digger, and Digger basically is eating the rose that is the Rose's trademark. Henchman tells him that they were supposed to leave that at the scene of the crime, and Digger basically just spits out what he bit and basically says that he's sorry about that. And he hands the dude, the henchman, the rose, which I guess are the Rose's henchmen. And it's pretty funny. Digger is the henchman of the Rose, I think, as well, but it seems like he has kind of his own set of goals and just works under the Rose because it's convenient. At least that's where I got off of this first issue and how Digger was handled in his character. But yeah, so he basically drives off with whoever's driving him, and he leaves the henchman, the Rose, and he gets out of there. Now you get to see that the aftermath of the explosion, Tombstone basically survived the explosion and saved his cat in the process, which means he must have taken the brunt of the explosion. And it's crazy, that explosion was about a building level explosion, and Tombstone seems to be damaged and scratched, but he's still alive. So I thought that was really cool. Eventually, he meets up with Peter Parker. Sees Peter Parker basically just walking around town, and he goes in. He asks him to come into his car as he has driver, I guess, driving around town, trying to find Peter. And they basically talk, and he tells him that he wants Peter to tell Spider-Man that things are going to get bad in the city and that people are probably going to die. And Peter basically tells him that Spider-Man is going to look forward to this because he kind of needs something to give him some type of action, and purpose, because he's kind of been like feeling purposeless in this last few months. So Tombstone basically laughs at this type of confidence that Peter has. He tells him to get out of his car, and he drives off with his driver driving him. And we get to see that Peter is in front of Mary Jane's apartment, and he basically smiles and walks away wearing a disguise, basically, so I guess she doesn't notice him or something. So he keeps checking up on her, apparently, which is kind of weird. Like people have said in the review, seems kind of stalkerish, but Mary Jane sees him walk past, and we see that she's actually in a relationship with another guy, which apparently looks like the writer of the story, which I think people said, or it looks like a person, a real life person that works in Marvel, I think they said, which to a lot of people is very cringe, especially in this type of situation. And the story basically ends with Mary Jane and this guy revealing that the guy reveals that she actually has kids, and we see them kind of like all embrace each other with a dad kind of like looking over them, or at least it's implied that it's their dad and Mary Jane's the mom. But that's how the issue ends. And yeah, this kind of like got a lot of people mad in the Spider-Man fandom because it seemed like the way that Nick Spencer was heading towards the story was that they were going to get remarried. Well, not remarried because it was retcon, so I guess married again in a way. So doing something like this in the first issue seemed like a slap in the face of the fans, especially if you know spoilers about apparently what's supposed to happen to Mary Jane in the next few issues. That's really bad as well. And there's a lot of decisions that seem to be turning off a lot of Spider-Man fans. So hopefully we'll see if they can sit the landing. I'm with a lot of people that I feel like had that ending not been in there, the issue would not be as talked about, like as badly talked about as it was, because it was a very solid issue with everything other than the ending. So I would give this a solid rating of good. I think it's a solid first issue. I blame kind of like editorial that probably for mandating them to put something like that for shock value and not having confidence in just having Peter and Mary Jane be married again. Which I think is very dumb because it's very obvious a lot of Spider-Man fans want that. And they should just go through with it. And if it doesn't work out, maybe give it a year, 2 or 3, and if it doesn't work out, you can retcon it. But you should at least try for a few years, because they worked wonders for Superman, and a lot of people are mad with what happened with Jonathan Kent in that case and what DC did to him. I feel like Spider-Man definitely could be the same case in that he could have a family and still be an interesting superhero, as it worked very well for Superman and his family. But that's gonna be all, guys. Like I said, we will be covering the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2 when it drops. Hopefully, I'll have it out on time when it drops. And yeah, until next video, guys. God bless you. Until next lesson, keep on reading those comments.